Welcome back to another episode of Grace, Grit, and Grounds. Grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's have a conversation. Some of you aren't lost. You're just tired. This time of year is always a little strange for me. Spring hits and I want to be out here in my shop. But my shop's not really a shop. Everything's on wheels, so, if I want to turn, I've got to roll it all out, set it up, always check the weather, hope the rain holds off long enough for me to get something done. And, as I put this piece on the lathe, you can see it's square. It's a piece of walnut with a bit of live edge on the outer port. I'm using a faceplate to make sure it's locked in so I can spin it. And mostly I'm just trying to turn it into round. On one edge, it's got a little bit of rough cut saw marks. On the other is the live edge and the sapwood. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do with this yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing what is possible. This particular year, working outside in the shop, it's been all about wind. It feels like it just doesn't stop. And as I'm sitting out here and doing some work, I'm looking out in my backyard and, well, my backyard's not much help either right now. They're leveling it out in the backyard, turning it into something that will be really nice someday. But right now, it kind of looks like the blasted wasteland of Mars. It's just dirt piles. That in-between stages when nothing is finished yet. And I realized this morning, that's kind of where I am too. It's not really a bad place. It's just not a settled one either. Somewhere in between what was and what's coming next. You can begin to see that in the piece that I'm turning here. It's starting to get into round, but I've got to be careful because I don't want to take away too much of that live edge. And so I'm kind of nervous about stripping it down too far. When I found this piece, it was in that offcut bin that I keep talking about, and I really liked it. One of the things that I enjoy about turning walnut is when I get a piece like this that has a bit of heartwood, which is the darker interior of the wood, and a little bit of that sapwood. This particular board obviously came from close to the outer edge of the tree because you can see a little bit of that live edge and the sapwood along with that beautiful rich interior. And I want to make something out of this because it's just one of those pieces that, it had problems to begin with, and I want to turn it into something that I know is going to be beautiful. And I'm in that in-between place. I'm in the shop, I'm enjoying my time, and of course I can't help but look behind me in my backyard that looks more like Mars than it does Earth. Before I moved to this house, I had a yard. I had a yard that I could spend a couple hours mowing. In fact, before we moved here, I had just purchased a brand new Cub Cadet riding lawnmower. And I tell you, I was in a great place. I could hop on my mower, throw on my headphones, and just enjoy being outside for a couple hours with nothing disturbing me, nobody needing anything, just me and my mower in the yard. Now, 15 minutes. 15 minutes and I'm done. And it's just not enough time. I like times when I can be in the shop or be in the back of my riding lawnmower because it gives me a place to process, to think, to spend some time without having any of the pressures of the world pushing in on me. It gives me time to think about my family and where I am right now. My kids are doing really well. They don't really need much from me anymore. Occasionally I get a phone call and a request for a little guidance here and there, but That's about it. And that's good, but it does change things. And if I'm being honest, personally, there's a little bit of burnout here too. Not the kind where everything falls apart. It's just that quiet kind where you keep going, but you can feel it building behind your eyes. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And I think a lot of us hear that, but we don't always know what to do with it. This is one of the ways that I can process since I don't really have a yard to mow anymore. So I take this piece that I've turned into round and I gave it a tenon, something that it will hold on to when I turn it over into the four-jaw chuck. I've got to get that faceplate off in order to get it turned around and seated in the four-jaw chuck. Having something solid that you can build on is important. Eventually, I'll probably remove the foot altogether, and that's okay. I need it for now, and I decided to make it a little unique by using the concentric circles, but whether it stays or goes, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is having something solid that I can work with, even if it's just for the moment that I'm in. And I think that has a spillover into my life. I've been wrestling with something lately. Some days I feel like I'm doing too much. Other days I feel like I'm not doing enough. And somehow both feel true at the same time. And that's a fight because that's where that voice creeps in, the one that hollers at me from the back of my head, the one that says, "You're behind. You're not enough. You shouldn't be the one to do this." I know the video is moving kind of fast, but you can see that after I flipped it over, that I had to start off with the Forstner bits by making a little bit of an opening in the center of it. And then I just spent my time trying to hollow it out. This is an important time in making any bowl. It's getting that balance between functionality and beauty. I need it to be thick enough so that I can be able to use it so that it won't fall apart or break when I start the sanding process. But I also want it to be thin enough that it's going to retain some of the beauty that I know is there. I'm still trying to hold on to the sapwood and a little bit of that live edge. And as I begin to sand it, I realize that more than likely that live edge is going to go away. I might be able to hold on to a little piece of it, but that's okay. I'm not really upset. I didn't expect it to fully stay, but I did try. As I'm turning this, my brain turns inward, as it always does. And this is the part that gets me, because you can't rush this piece. I'm starting to do the sanding, and I'm really trying to bring everything into focus. And I know that if I go too fast, either when I'm hollowing it out or if I'm doing the sanding, that I can ruin this piece. It's still in that state where, well, I could mess it up. I'm thinking about Psalm 23. I find myself going back to that passage more often than not, especially as I get a little bit older and a little more, I don't know, connected to what God is calling me to do. I'm reminded of that passage in Psalm 23 where it says, "He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." That's what's happening right now. Sure, God is sanding me. He's hollowing me out just like I'm doing to this bowl. He's preparing me to be a vessel that's going to be useful and beautiful. But he's not rushing. He's not grinding any harder. He's still working me. That's kind of the slow part. That's the grind part. That's what we're doing right now. I'm working the inside and the outside. I'm using a sponge It's a sanding block that's made on a bit of foam material. I do that on these shallow bowls because I want to get on the inside of that lip, and it's just easier to do with a little bit of a sponge because it helps me to put pressure and not destroy the piece. When I look at the sanding part of this project, I wonder sometimes if anybody really watches this part. It can get a little boring and repetitive because all I'm really doing is just stepping down the sandpaper, going from, the tougher grit down to the finer grit. But I think this is where the change really happens, the important change, where the true shaping takes place. And I got to thinking about this, and I know where I am. And maybe, just maybe, this is where you are too. You're in that pre-burnout spot. You're not failing and you're not falling apart. You're just in the middle of that slow work, the grind, the sanding. It's a hard place to be, I'll be honest. When I was younger, my kids were more active and in the house, and we had constant things happening. The activity just never really stopped. I never really had a chance during those seasons to sit back and ask some of the deeper questions in my life. And now I am. And I'll be honest, I don't have all the answers. I know God has promised to walk with me. I know that He has given me a vision and a path. I know He has work for me yet to do. But I just feel like I'm going through that in-between spot. That space between here and where I'm going to be. I'm getting close to the end of this project. The final bits of sanding are being done. I'm using some really fine grit. I decided to go all the way down to 600 grit, which, if you know anything about sandpaper, that's pretty fine. I wanted to polish this up right so that when I'm finished, it will have that beautiful shine that I'm looking for. And I'm just about there. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but the piece is really starting to come into focus. You can see a little bit of the live edge right there in the camera frame, and it has the beautiful white sapwood along with the darker grain in there. And I'm about ready to put the oil on. If you've been watching these videos, you know this really is one of the best parts. Because when you put that oil on and you get that finish, it just starts to bring the grain out, feel the beauty that's hidden deep within. But at the same time, it seals and protects. I mentioned before that oil in the Old Testament often represents the Holy Spirit. And I think about Adam in the garden when God first breathed life into him. That's every time I finish up a bowl, I think about that. And I put the finish on, and you can see it just now bringing life to the outside of the bowl. And everything that was already there starts to really come alive. You can see the dark, rich grain just popping out. I guess as I have been thinking about this, and especially this moment when I'm finishing the polishing and just trying to get enough oil on the piece so that it will, have that good seal and that beautiful shine. And I'm thinking about my life. I'm thinking about all the questions that we've talked about on this particular video. And here's kind of what I'm leaning to right now. Just because you feel in between doesn't mean you're off track. Just because you're tired doesn't mean you're finished. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says this: "Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." That season's coming, and it's going to come quickly, even if it doesn't feel like it today. Sometimes the strongest things you can do is keep showing up and stay on the lathe just a little bit longer. So in the end, if you're trying to build something with your hands and hold your life together at the same time, you're not alone. There are more of us out there than you think, showing up, doing the work, trying to be faithful with what's in front of us, even on the days when it all feels like we're running on fumes. So if that's you, just keep going. Stay steady. Stay present. Do the next thing right in front of you. Because grace builds what grit sustains. Hey, I'm really glad you spent some time with me out here in the shop today. That means more than you probably realize. If this resonated with you, then go ahead and like this video. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It helps more folks find this space who might need it as well. Again, I want to thank everyone for joining me on Grace, Grit, and Grounds. I look forward to seeing you again soon.